So here we have our binding tape. I cut it to a point right here so it's easier to put in. Just put it in this little slot right here at the very top. I'm gonna have to maneuver it in. It's kind of hard at first, don't get a little frustrating, but once you get it in a little bit, you can just put your seam ripper in and pull it to the back. And it should come right through. Oh. There we go. And then just pull it about 2 inches past your foot. Then go ahead and install it. And we're ready to start sewing. I have all of mine just hanging out over here because it's important that you feed it correctly or the sides get all lopsided. So we'll just put in the fabric through this little slot. You don't have to shove it back there. When the feed dogs move your binding tape, the tape will grab onto the fabric and move it through too. As long as your needle is grabbing the binding tape, it should be fine. And I notice sometimes that my binding tape does kind of shift around on me, so I'll just keep an eye on my needle position and move it over as needed. If I see it's starting to go off on me, I'll just move it over a little bit until it's grabbing both the fabric and the binding tape. You can hold your binding tape up at an angle if that's easier for it to get it on your fabric. It just depends how it's feeding on your machine. Once you get the hang of it, you can really speed it up a little bit. And if you do have some sections that didn't catch the binding tape, that's all right. You can just go back, take out a little bit of the stitches and hand tack it down. It's no big deal. You can make it the stitches longer or shorter. You can move it over to a zigzag if you want. And let's see what it looks like. Here you can see it's nice and even, perfect stitch, exactly what we want. And over here, it went over to a zigzag, catching both the binding tape and the fabric. So this time I'm going to use some twill tape and some knit fabric. So you can use this foot with knit fabric. A little tip though, if your edges are rolling all over the place, starch them down nice and flat first and put in a basting stitch to help keep everything stabilized while it's going through this foot. So same as before, we're just going to slip it in like this and make sure our needle is where we want it. Let me go ahead and, yep, that's catching it. So make sure everything, it's a little harder with knits, especially a light knit like this, but that's okay. Once everything gets started, it works really well. So just trying to make sure that this isn't slipping all over the place. It is a little bit harder with knits, but it still comes out looking really, really good. And this twill tape is a little thicker, so it's a little bit harder to get through, but it still does go through and it still feeds really nicely. Just gonna have to, once again, stabilizing the fabric with some starch is kind of the key to using this foot with knits. And I have my twill tape over here to the side, just because I think it feeds better. And let's take a look at how it turned out. See right there on the edge, right there, you can barely even see this